Yes, good evening, board members and staff and students and community members. Welcome to this regular meeting of October 2019. I would like to ask Ms. Janice Hernandez to lead us in our invocation, followed by the pledge of allegiance.
Dear Lord, thank you for every seat that has been filled here today. For each mind and heart that fills the presence of this room, we thank you. Only you truly know what we are setting out to accomplish today. We have an idea, a vision, and daily instructions. We have talents, abilities, and time to work. However, only you can see in perfect detail the end of every beginning. Bless this meeting today, all those present, as well as the lives of those we will encounter afterward. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, and one indivisible.
Yes, sir. This is the way for the right. So the right is going to recognize our students of the month, and we have a few other special recognitions. I know we have a young man joining us who's achieved some really great things through the scout program. And then we're going to recognize a very special group within our district, leaders of the campuses, which are campus changes, celebrating national services. So I'll turn it back over to Jennifer and welcome.
Okay, so tonight's first recognition we have from McNair Middle School, Ms. Sindel Gersta. Sindel conducts our morning announcements, is a member of our student ambassadors, participates in volleyball, and is part of theater productions. Sindel is recognized as GT and is currently taking honors classes. She is also part of the Future Farmers of America and Showing Rabbits. Sindel enjoys swimming, shopping, and fishing for fun. Sindel has received the Optimist Award in both 6th and 7th grade for being a top student academically. Sindel plans on attending Texas A&M University in College Station. She wants to study animal and biomedical sciences to become a veterinarian. We want to thank Sindel and recognize her for being such a great student at McNair. Next up, we have Miranda Zuniga from Southwest Legacy High School. Miranda is senior class president and changing the spirit of Southwest Legacy High School. Miranda has the ability to lead a group of student leaders and classmates in a way that encourages school spirit and involvement. She is innovative and excited when implementing and creating traditions for Legacy. She is respectful and considerate of her constituents and staff on campus and is always requesting feedback and ideas while advocating for all students. While holding her student leadership position, she is involved with all the planning of pep rallies and spirit sections at all football games. In an effort to make the class of 2020 a memorable year, she is paving the way for new traditions and changing the paradigm of school spirit here at Southwest Legacy High School. Congratulations. Our next recognition is for Joshua Hack. The Boy Scouts of America's highest ranking The Boy Scouts of America's highest rank is Eagle Scout. Tonight, we want to recognize Joshua Hack, a 10th grader at Southwest High School, for earning his Eagle Scout. Becoming an Eagle Scout takes perseverance and work. Scouts have to earn and advance through 6 levels of rank, work for and earn 21 merit badges, have 6 months in a leadership position, a service project, and pass a board of review. Joshua's service project was organizing the birthday room and Christmas wish list for patients at the San Antonio State Hospital. Less than 6% of all Scouts earn their Eagle Scout. Josh embodies the Scout law, and that makes him a man of strong character. Mr. Black says, from one Eagle Scout to another, welcome to the club.
So we always take time every month to recognize our students of the month who come from the respective campuses. And so we know behind our students of the month and our highest achieving Scott Monterey are families and parents. So we like to ask our families and parents to equally rise and let us thank you and congratulate you because behind our students of the month are families of the month. So please rise and celebrate. We also like to ask our principals of these students, because our principals are here. We always recognize you.
Okay, so we also want to recognize Texas Education HR Day. Governor Greg Abbott has proclaimed October 9th of 2019 as Texas Education Human Resources Day, a day set aside to recognize and honor the important contributions made by school staff who work in human resources. Human resources staff work hard each day to make sure our schools are staffed with high-quality employees and that those employees have a positive work environment. And y'all have that proclamation with you in your packets. So congratulations and thank you for all you do. Hi, Adrian. Hi, Will. Hi. Yeah. Perfect. So we're going to move on to the principal's recognition. I'm going to ask Miss Selena Madrigal and Miss Annie Britton to please stand up and present.
This is a rowdy group.
Perfect. So as Janice mentioned, we do want to recognize our principals tonight. So throughout the entire school year, the district takes time to recognize our various staff positions and departments that make up all of Southwest ISD. The month of October, as Dr. Versa mentioned, is Principals Month, and that gives us the opportunity to acknowledge the major role that our principals play in our school district. Since our principals are not being honored on one specific day, but for the entire month, we felt that this board meeting would be a great place to recognize them. Our principals lead their campuses and inspire their students each day to be the best that they can be. As John Quincy Adams once said, if your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you are a leader. Here at Southwest ISD, we are so fortunate to have 19 principals who are tremendous leaders. They are hardworking, passionate, dedicated, and committed to our students. We would like to call them up individually today to be recognized for all of their efforts and to receive a token of appreciation from Southwest ISD. Principals, as I call your name, please come up to receive your certificate from Dr. Versa, take a picture, shake our board members' hands, receive your gift from the district from Miss Annie Britton, return to your seat, and then we'll call you all back up to take a group picture because we know there's a lot of you. So we'll go ahead and get started first with Big Country Elementary. We have Miss Wendy Quillen. Next, we have Bob Hope Elementary, Mr. Brian Penart. We have Elm Creek Elementary, Melissa Garza. Hidden Cove Elementary, Tracy Myers. Indian Creek Elementary, Araceli Bunsen. Crewald Road Elementary, Rosie Hidalgo. Meadow Creek Elementary, Amy Garza. Sky Harbor Elementary, Sylvia Acuna. Perfect. Yeah. Southwest Elementary, Judy Foster. Spicewood Park Elementary, Gaspar de Leon. Sun Valley Elementary, Veronica Cuenca Wilson. You're good, Judy. McAuliffe Middle School, Roxy Freeman. McNair Middle School, Anitra Chris. Resnick Middle School, Odelia Martinez. Gobi Middle School, Jorge Cruz.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Castem Asia Gardner. It's timing here.
Is that too many people in here?
Mm-hmm.
AC can't keep up.
Crossroads JJ Perez. And now for our high schools, we have Southwest High School, Paul Black. Last but not least, we have Southwest Legacy High School, Joseph Guidry. Perfect. Turn it back over to you. All right, and that concludes our principal recognition. If we could have all of our principals come back up to the front for a quick group picture. If we can get tallest in the back, please. Tallest in the back. No, you're good. You do not need your certificate, just yourself.
Use a mic so you know it works.
Just in the back.
The mic's supposed to work.
It wasn't working, I was over there earlier.
You don't need to speak into it. That's why you have to yell. You don't have to.
I was loud, so.
I know that because you're having to yell. You're just talking to that.
All right.
You're an ER person. You know that.
JJ. Hop in. Oh yeah. Anyone else good?
Thank you guys for everything you do.
Yeah. You're good.
Okay, and our last recognition of the night is from Elm Creek Elementary, Bernie Battles. Yay, Bernie! Bernie has either met or mastered STAR since grade 3. Most recently, Bernie scored mastery in math and writing, STAR in grade 4. On top of his academic achievements, Bernie is also involved in several extracurricular activities at Elm Creek. He's an active member of the Robotics Club. He participates in safety patrols and is in the Explorer Chess Club. Last school year, Bernie placed first in the district science fair. Outside of school, Bernie works just as hard. He is in extracurricular activities off campus, such as soccer, FFA, and track. Elm Creek Elementary is extremely proud of Bernie Battles and that he is part of the Explorer family. Congratulations.
We're just Garza and Amy Garza.
All right, before we go in about public comments, I'm gonna make a comment. Houston is ahead for the night. All right, the next thing is public comment. Mr. Rodriguez.
Habitat for Humanity, and he'll be speaking in
You'll handle on the division line. Okay. Nobody else? All right, at this time, every board meeting, I will make an announcement. The exciting part is open. From now on, there's going to be a lot of boring talk and things. If you would like to stay, you can. If you want to get up and leave now, I'll give you a couple of minutes.
Thank you.
Congratulations. You're not used to being
Hey, Raphael, Odie, they put the presentation on there yet? Or no?
Yeah, I have it. I have it in here.
Yeah, worked out of it? Yes, sir. We have a couple of presentations tonight. We're going to start off with some bond projects. I put on your desk also kind of a picture of fund balance. I will say that we're going through our district audit this week. At the next board meeting, we'll have more information on where we are on fund balance at the end of the fiscal year. And so that's part of our presentation to show you where we are in programming. I will tell you that we're over budget at this point, and we're working through all those things. And so we're here to kind of just talk about where we are, what it looks like, and then as we move forward, how we're making decisions. Questions? So we'll get started.
All right, just before I start with phase 3, just wanted to give a quick update on phase 2. George is closing out punch list, leftover punch list items. The only item that we have open is the site lighting for the entire district. That was part of that phase 2 project. That the material is being ordered. We're about 6 weeks out from receiving it. end of November, that's when that will be completed. So all of the site lighting will be upgraded to LEDs on our main campus. Now to present our Southwest High School Phase 3, we've brought our design team, Fluger Architects. We have Carr, Eduardo, and Andrew with Fluger Architects to give us this update.
Good evening, Dr. Berstuff, Mr. President, and members of the school board. We appreciate your time. We are here to present a schematic design update for the Phase 3 renovations at Southwest High School. We've done a lot of research to start and have identified what we consider to be 2 priority scope items for the campus. And so we will talk through those here. I just wanted to also mention that in addition to this research, we are working with the CM at Risk, which is ChemCon Construction, and they have been kind enough to start putting some preliminary pricing numbers to this information, and so we'll be able to give you an update on that as well. So with that said, I will move right into what we've identified as the major scope items. So in the green box, what we've identified as priority 1 scope is infrastructure upgrades with mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, which includes the replacement of outdated rooftop units. We've got some electrical panel upgrades that need to be made, LED lighting fixtures. We also have some gas piping that needs to be replaced. And so a lot of those different infrastructure items are being put into that priority 1 as recognized as absolute necessary work for this project. In addition to that, we've identified classroom upgrades for 64 plus or minus existing classrooms to upgrade the finishes inside of those rooms. We're looking at replacing flooring, ceilings, refreshing the finishes on the walls, and then lastly, restroom renovations, which include the renovation and potential replacement of fixtures in all of the group restrooms. And we've identified all of those different restrooms as you're going to see here. Priority 2 scope is scope that we've identified as not necessarily fitting within the advertised budget for this project, but still being important enough to consider. And so we've added to that non-traditional classroom upgrades, which is also improving finishes and infrastructure inside of classrooms that are maybe for art or ROTC or home economics, etc. We also identified replacement of hardware on entrance doors. That would be, for upgraded security, trying to make everything match the same on the campus. We've also identified the build out of a choir hall. As we understand it, Southwest High School does not currently have a choir hall, so this would actually allow us to create one and help grow that program. And lastly, the CTE building has a roof that is actually currently out of warranty, and so we've identified a priority 2 replacement of that roof. And so with that said, our general contractor, KenCon, has put some pricing information to these scope items. And so for priority 1, you can actually see here that they are tracking a cost of about $7.9 million. The classroom upgrades is about $4.7 million, and the restroom renovations are about $2.5 million for a grand total of $15.1 million. We do want to point out that the advertised budget for this project is $14.5 million. So we, even as of yesterday, have been making efforts to visit the campus and really identify critical areas that need the improvements, because we do want to recognize that we may not be able to touch all of these spaces within these dollar figures. So we are still approaching trying to get this project inside of the budget, and just want to make sure that you're fully aware of our intentions here. So with that said, I will hand it over to Eduardo to talk a little bit more about the priority 1 scope before we get into priority 2.
Yeah, so here you can see both levels of the main 1980s original high school building. We've identified all the existing classrooms, which would be the general kind of standardized classroom, as well as highlighting in black the existing restrooms that are slated to be renovated. As Andrew mentioned, there's about about 53 classrooms.
That down a little bit already.
Yeah, and since then we've had conversations with Mr. Black on site and started to identify some rooms that maybe even don't need full-fledged upgrading. Here you can see just kind of an overlay of an existing classroom photo. Essentially everything will be touched with the exception of the existing glazed block walls that are currently in the space. I want to highlight the teaching wall. We would be furring that out and incorporating all electrical and data, but also implementing integrated visual display boards as well as a built-in teacher cabinets as part of that system, just to kind of consolidate and clean up that look. Another key feature here is you can see that we're planning to extend the walls all the way up to deck that are above the ceiling. Currently, there's many classrooms that do not have acoustical separation between classrooms. So you can actually be in a classroom and hear what's happening next door, which, you know, it can be efficient, I guess, if you're trying to learn two things at the same time. But we feel that it's important to extend that up. And all this pricing has been incorporated in our conversations. Here you can see a rendering of what it could look like. You can see those kind of existing tan colored glazed block walls. All the flooring would be new VCT. We would carry on the patterning that we did in phase 2 corridors. All the lighting and ceiling would be replaced. And there you can see the teaching wall where we would have impact resistant, kind of a lower band of impact resistant material, and then integrated visual display boards, marker boards, tack boards, things like that. Some of you are probably already familiar with this. In phase 2, we did renovate the level 1 major common restroom. Here you can see the before and after on the left side of the slide. And that's what we'd be proposing for the same. We'd be proposing the same for the other restrooms throughout, where we have these. It calls out 1 meter by 3 meters, but it's basically a 3 foot by 9 foot sheet of porcelain tile. It really cleans up the look, and we feel like it's so far it's been working and it's been well received.
So to touch on the priority 2 scope again, we've identified this as some very important scope to potentially entertain for the project, but recognizing that we may not have the budget to do this work. We have the non-traditional classroom upgrades, which again include potentially the art suite, ROTC, etc. That number is targeted at $3.7 million. The entrance door hardware replacement is currently targeting at $50,000, so that is a pretty low number to enhance the security around the building, so it's certainly worth consideration. The choir hall build out, which actually we'll get into a little bit down the road here, involves actually taking over 2 existing classrooms and expanding them to create a larger choir hall. The work associated with doing that is targeted at about $400,000 per the general contractor's estimate. And lastly, the replacement of the existing roof on the CTE building, which we're saying is roughly $300,000. So all of priority 2 work is about $4.45 million total, as estimated at this time by our general contractor.
Here in blue, you can see the highlighted spaces, which are the non-traditional classrooms, which would include Cyber Patriots, the art, fine arts, and then what we understand to be the home ec sewing rooms, which aren't really being utilized at this time. So there's currently conversations that we've been having with the school about how some of these suites might be benefited if they move around. We did have an opportunity to meet with ROTC. They seem to love their space in terms of how it's laid out, so that wouldn't necessarily require major overhaul, but maybe just a refresh of paint and things like that. So I think within this, there's levels of upgrades that we can identify here. The choir hall, you can see that in the auditorium addition, where we've been directed to look at these 2 existing classrooms to be converted into a single larger choir room. Part of that would be incorporating existing storage rooms that could be utilized as an office and storage for that. Another key feature of this is incorporating new entrances from the lobby side and closing off the existing entrances on the corridor side, which is closer to the science and math classrooms. Again, this would be a major overhaul of the space. It would include acoustical upgrades. Obviously, there's pyramidal ceiling tiles that would be incorporated. There's risers that we would want to incorporate, specialty marker boards that have the musical staff on them. Essentially, it would be similar to the classrooms in terms of finish.
Thanks. So again, to summarize, the total of both Priority 1 and Priority 2 scope at this time is tracking at about $19.5 million. So we, again, recognize that that does exceed the advertised budget for the Phase 3 project. And so we wanted to present this information to you so that you have an understanding of what we're trying to identify as important scope for the project, but also work in conjunction with the campus and our contractor to give you a project that does come in at or under your budget. With that said, we did include at the end of the presentation a little sheet for you to write down any questions you may have, as Mr. Vasquez has mentioned, for your brown bag committee. We will absolutely work with the facilities department to answer any and all questions you may have. And with that, we thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Let you know on the date.
We're going to transition. We're a little further behind on the auditorium. We currently do not have a CM at risk on board yet. We're going to work on that. So we're going to kind of show you what we've been talking about, some of the programming we've been going through with the architect, and also kind of a timeline and what that looks like. And then we have some key questions that we have to do as a district decide. And so we're going to actually leave you with questions to think about until the next meeting. And if you look in your booklet and follow along, you'll see those towards the end, because this project's a little different and we've never done an auditorium before. And so there's a lot to it, more than we actually thought going into it on some of the decisions that has to be made by the district. So I'm gonna let Rafael kind of go through it. He's gonna hit the highlights, and then like Mr. Vasquez said, at the brown bag, we're bringing in an architect, and we're gonna spend a lot of time kind of going through everything and turning over every rock on this project.
So right before the board meeting, I put this packet on y'all's desk so you can follow along and write some notes if you guys feel like. So again, part of our due diligence was to create a preliminary program, which means kind of, again, a pool can be one of a million things. So the idea right now is to have two different pools, one for competitive swim and the other one for warm-up and instructional. It all depends on the size of the pool as well, which we'll go into it in a couple of slides. That will increase our capacity for visitors from about 500 to 750. Part of this will be to have public and student athlete locker rooms, toilet rooms, as well as offices. Not only the aquatics office, but there's also the idea of relocating our district athletic offices to move to that natatorium in order to make them more centralized and serve the entire district better. So in addition to that, flex rooms, meet rooms, strength training, and also support spaces that need to come in within the natatorium, which are first aid, lifeguard offices, and the coach's office. Sorry. So part of this also was to really prioritize what the needs for the district and the community are in terms of pool usage. The number one being competitive use, right? That's what we want our students to have. We want them to stop, or not for the district not to spend all our resources sending them to Palo Alto. We can do that in-house. I know a very up-and-coming sport is also water polo. With both options that we'll be presenting, or that I'll be presenting, you can service water polo. Community swim, that is one stipulation that the county had in their input of $4 million to this project. So we need to open that up to the community. That will allow us to do learn to swim and other programs like first responders, synchronized swimming, triathletes. Those are additional. So here really is our option one, which is a 50-meter pool by 25 yards with the additional, the instructional smaller pool for community use or warm up or cool down. The second option is what they call the 25-meter stretch pool. By UIL rules, you really need a 25-yard to swim. A 25-meter stretch pool will give you that and a diving well as well.
And so real quick, just to, so you know, we're proceeding with both options as we go through this process because there's some dollar amounts tied to both of these. And we're going to do site visits on these types of pools to see the difference, to make sure that if we do go with option 2, that later down the road that doesn't hurt the district. And we have to make so this is really a question to start thinking about: is what is it going to take for us to get to option 1 versus option 2? But there's some other factors at play in that.
Right, and some of those factors, really, in terms of usage, are right here laid out. Obviously, the bigger pool, the longer pool, gives you more of a flexibility. The more bodies can be in the water, you can run dual meets at once. You also have the ability to do a 50-meter pool, which then increases the people that can come to your pool. On the 25-meter stretch, you're limited to the number of lanes. You still have what will serve as your UIL kind of bases and diving wells as well. The other items to consider is the pool construction type. So there's basically two types of construction, which is a traditional conventional concrete pool, and then your pre-engineered MRFA pool. Some of those items are laid out here. So the concrete traditional pool is labor intensive. You need rebar, formwork. The layering of it also is susceptible for maintenance or higher maintenance due to the water chemistry of the water. This, just like any other concrete, comes with a 1-year warranty, but it's more cost effective and widely used. The MRFA pool is a pre-engineered stainless steel panel. It still has a concrete bottom, but the sides of the wall are pre-engineered. It's faster, more coordination is done prior to implementation. It's low maintenance, and the standard warranty on this system is 25 years. So the lifespan of this is much larger, but it comes at a cost. We're talking about a 10 to 20% premium on this type of system. Some of these are just examples. I know New Kinney ISD has a 25-meter stretch pool. I know, talking to Coach Wagner, he's very interested in going out there just to see how it actually operates during meets or throughout the day. Lamar ISD, also both of these are in Houston, and some of us were able to visit Bill Walker Pool. That's the 50-meter length pool. That was during construction. It's now fully operational. So part of this further development is going to be inviting you all to go out there and really see the finished end product for this campus. So with this said, the larger the pool, the larger the cost. Right now, the tracking value is at about $385 a square foot, but this is with a traditional concrete and naturally ventilated. If we go and do the MRFA pool or fully conditioned, which means heating or dehumidification, we're talking at about $410 a square foot. Our budget, construction budget, is $17.5 million for this project. Again, listing here major considerations is, again, the construction type of the pool tank, whether it be concrete or pre-engineered, the seating capacity, whether we want 750 or closer to 500, the support spaces, and site work. Once again, they're just touching here on trying to add a dollar cost value to whether do a concrete pool or a pre-engineered, and also the natural ventilation or dehumidification. So pools traditionally don't have the traditional HVAC system as we all know it. It's a dehumidification process. So it takes the humidity out of the space. It's not really AC, but it takes that level to a comfort level for swimmers. You don't want to push AC on competitive swimming or learn to swim, just because it won't. It's not apt for those swimmers. Part of this is just laying out our schedule. So again, we're pretty buttoned up with our preliminary programming. We will be advertising this on October 19th. We'll be opening the CMR bids on November 4th and evaluating them through November 7th. Our recommendation for the CMR will be on November 19th board meeting. With that, once the contractor is approved, they will work concurrently with the architect to bring the GMP on the July 23rd board meeting. All this break ground on September 1st of 2020, 18-month construction. We'll be opening up on February 2022. Yes. So again, as Brandon, Mr. Chris said, these are some questions we have for you guys. I know this was kind of just $30,000 or 30,000 EU.
These are questions to think about as we go into the next meeting and programming with the architect. You know, it's competition pool. We're going to have to take a look at what size pool, and it's really going to be down to affordability. When you're looking at the 50-meter versus in another pool versus the 25-meter stretch. So that's something just to think about. Also, the pool structure. Do we want to pay a little bit more up front to have the longer warranty, or not do that? Dehumidification and heating versus natural ventilation. That's why we kind of want to set up a meeting for us to go to see the Bill Walker pool, because they use natural ventilation. They don't have the dehumidification system. That can actually save you almost $1 million going that route if we want to put that more towards the pool. And then spectator seating, the seating size, that's all going to depend on the pool. If we go with a 50-meter, you probably want bigger stands because you're going to have more people probably using the pool. And then just program spaces and budget. And so a lot of it, just things to think about going into our next meeting and when we have the architect there. But if there's something you want us to kind of talk about now, we can.
I know that we had talked about long time ago about the community using the like and I had mentioned that maybe they should be going to
Correct.
So I would like to see how much it would cost to have a couple of parties.
Okay.
They're like meeting rooms that they could use as parties.
Correct. So you'll see that we actually have those spaces. They're just going to be flexible spaces we're having. We're actually going to have where it can be possibly a activity workout room / meeting room / whatever we decide to use it for.
But if we want to use it for community, then we don't want to use it
Well, it's because we're looking at having stuff that's removable. We'll have a place to put our equipment, because we also don't want all our equipment out there when we're having meetings, swimming and stuff. Correct. No, well, actually, I'm looking to have a growth and planning meeting. I haven't announced it, but probably the 6th of November. So that's kind of like our plan again, and just show them where we're at too, just to give them the board will get it first, probably like in the brown bag, and have one so we can get the growth and planning together. Kind of show them where we're at, just like we're showing you guys, and ask them for input. our next key thing is just to get the CMR on board so that we can get real good pricing. Because right now it's kind of inflated with the architect can be very conservative, and then getting a contractor on board that can get us really start talking to subcontractors. That'll be also very important. That's it.
That's it. That's it.
Yes, sir. We're at right over 98%. We're pretty close to the end of the year, so our goal is to be at 99.5, and so hopefully we'll make up this. And so we're doing really good. Close. Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's right here.
He's going to present again.
Sorry, sir. I'll be here all night.
Yeah. Just really brief. We're having an online auction.
Yes.
We're going to give you the times and dates.
So our online auction will be going through November 15th, starting November 15, 2019 through December 19th. And here are kind of the major dates. So Lemons will be doing the inventory on November 12th. And again, the auction will begin on the 15th through the December 3rd, and pickup for the items will be on December 14th through the December 6th.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Sorry, this will be advertised on our SWISD website.
I don't think so. Not this time, sir. And if it's in there, you don't want to buy it, sir. Yeah. It'll hold dog food.
We have Dr. Patty Escobedo that will be presenting. This year we went ahead and did that initial investment of pre-K for all. So we've come back and looked at what are we doing in our literacy arena in order for us to improve our third grade scores and moving on up. We wanted to also come back and look at what we're doing as soon as the kids step into our district.
Okay, so thank you. So with the recent passing of House Bill 3, where there will be much more rigorous accountability standards beginning with kinder through second grade. So what we're looking at is starting looking at our early childhood with that crosswalk tying in with our kinder cohorts. So with that, the House Bill 3 funding allotments for our early childhood with kinder through third grade are going to require our Board of Trustees and our district leadership to complete the following. So we're bringing this as an item of information to you as we begin this process. It will begin next year, but we're starting to plan for that. So as our Board of Trustees and our district leadership, they will be required to develop and post the early childhood literacy and the mathematics proficiency plans on our district website and then set specific annual goals for kinder through second grade. They will also require the campuses to develop 5-year plans with specific targets for closing the gaps on our targeted subpops, as well as requiring the districts to integrate reading diagnostics for kinder through third grade. So HB3 supports the bringing the science of teaching reading to pre-K through third grade, and our district has already begun that practice and that training for our teachers. So in order to ensure that we're raising the bar and ensuring that our pre-K students are what we consider to be kinder ready at the end of the next year, we're aligning our pre-K instruction to include the addition of Saxon Phonics and the Heggerty instruction within the daily schedule of our pre-kinder classrooms. The Heggerty Phonics will be included for 10 minutes during the day, ideally during that transition time. So there's a lot of time throughout the day when the children's, when they're moving from one rotation to another, they're singing and practicing their phonics. There'll be some hand gestures included in there. So we'll integrate the Heggerty with the OWL curriculum that we currently have with our pre-K with Head Start and our pre-K for SA. This will be included in all of our programs to include our new SWISD pre-K for all. So with the addition of the Heggerty and the Saxon Phonics, we want to ensure that everyone is aware that it will not alter the integrity of the OWL curriculum, which is what we currently use with our partnership with Head Start and our pre-K for SA. So the daily minutes in our district calendar, because we have more minutes than what is allotted for, we'll be able to add this additional instruction in. So with adding the 10 minutes throughout the day in their transition, and the 20 minutes in the day, that will be considered our district initiative for kinder readiness. And we'll be tying this in with Velia Terrazas, with what we're doing with our elementary to make sure that we're aligned with kindergarten to be hopefully our students better prepared. So our performance outcome goal is to ensure that our reading alignment from pre-kinder through third grade will close those gaps in early literacy performance, specifically in language and literacy domains, to increase our kinder readiness awareness. Bless you. Bless you. So we are looking at the assessments that we use with pre-kinder, and we'll be taking a harder look at all that data that we have with our kinder readiness skills. So the Division of C&I will provide the necessary funds for the teacher classroom materials, which we've already purchased those for our teachers, and we have training provided for our teachers by our highly qualified staff in the Department of Student Services Intervention. Any questions? Okay. Great. All right. Thank you. Oh, okay. So Mr. Gonzalez will come up next.
All right, thank you. I did leave you the copies there on your desk area. Let me see if I can.
There is some transition times, and in part of those transitions, the curriculum, the OWL curriculum does require some play time, some social time. All that is already established in the schedule. Both.
Outdoor research time or in the classroom? Or I'll get you the OWL curriculum so that you can see the proposed schedule.
And so when we say our curriculum, it's from the time that they arrive, from 8 o'clock all the way to like about 3:15. They're looking at every single minute, so every single activity is already scheduled in there, from snack to lunch to even playtime.
So with that playtime and the transition, if we look at a 6-week period, the amount of transitions adds up to almost 5 school days, which is almost 40 hours of instructional time. That's why we want to make sure that we're utilizing that instructional time, even though it's transitions. So it might be the hand gestures with motions, with the sounds and letters. So we don't want it to just be, well, let's move from here to there, but let's have an activity where they're actually learning instruction, because it does add up to about 40 hours in that 6-week period.
We'll show it.
All right, thank you very much, President Frazier, Dr. Versta, school board members. So I'm presenting the program evaluation for the bilingual ESL department based on last year's results, 2018 and 19. So I'm going to walk you through a couple of the slides and where we find the data for our ELs, bilingual and ESL. We're required by November 1st to provide this program evaluation under Chapter 89, which governs the bilingual and ESL instruction or programming for the state. So the first one here, we're looking at our domain number 1. When we look at our new A through F accountability, we can see here we're comparing all test STAR scores in approaches, meets, and masters. So in blue, you find all tests, 3rd grade all the way through high school. So we have 70 in approaches, 39 in meets, and 16 in masters when we compare all scores together, including ELs. If we were just to separate our EL results, we look at 61 in approaches, 28 in meets, and 11 in masters. However, in our accountability, we also use our monitored students. Those are students that have met criteria to exit out. And so when we use both the ELs that are in program and those who have recently exited out, we look at our scores and we can see that we're pretty competitive, 68, 35, and 14, along with just kind of general results of all scores. So if we look a little bit deeper, we can dig into the data where we look at our English, math, science, and social studies scores. We can see that across the board, we look at just general language arts, math, science, and social studies scores in comparison to just ELs. You can see one of the highlights, of course, in math, we always tend to do a lot better with our ELs. And so you can see there in our meets and masters, we surpass our regular general education testing. So the other areas that we are having to present on is our TELPAS score. So our EL students take 2 different assessments. The first assessment, of course, would be STAR, which is standard for all students. And any student that is in the EL or in the bilingual ESL program also has to take TELPAS. And TELPAS, of course, is looking at the 4 domains: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. As of last year, the domains now are equally weighted at 25%. Previous to that, listening and speaking were only 10%, and of course, reading and writing were the other 80% of the score. But when we look at the TELPAS progress rate, the state of Texas says in order for us to meet standard for TELPAS scores in elementary and secondary, they have to have a 36% progress rate. So we look at our elementary scores, you can see there, you can look at the percentage of ELs on each campus. So Big Country, for example, has 20.9% ELs in their population. Their total, 53 of their 96 students that were assessed met the TELPAS progress rate, so they made 1 year progress. And if you go down the scale all the way down to Sun Valley, you can see that all our elementary campuses met the TELPAS progress rate. So this is the second year in a row. Even though the changes to the new evaluation system in TELPAS with listening, speaking, and reading being online, our elementaries again have been successful and have met the progress rate 2 years in a row. The TELPAS progress rate is looking at listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And so if they go up 1 year, make 1 year progress, then that means that they get a credit for it. 55% 55% at Big Country, 39% at Bob Hope, 39% at Elm Creek. And so we look at even Crewell. Crewell had 7 students, and of those 7 students, they all met the progress rate. So they got that 70, or actually 7 of them made the progress rate, so 70%. And that's the highest one that we have at elementary. So you can see at the far end how many actually met the rate. And so those students, we're working, we have a TOPAS action plan that we're working individually with the elementary campuses to make sure that we're continuing to be successful with these students, but also to make sure that we're providing the support for those other students that did not make the TOPAS progress rate. And so we're working individually. We have a TELPAS action plan that even though each campus met the TELPAS progress rate, so individually we met with administrators and their campus leadership to provide support, resources, technology to ensure that those students that did not make the TELPAS progress rate are on the radar, and so that we're providing that support, and that way we can make sure that those students also are being provided the same support that we're providing for any students who already met the progress rate.
You can kind of see on the second last
Yeah,
page,
comparisons.
Yeah.
where you're-
Yes, and actually what had happened, it was actually 42% last year. And so the state of Texas, I guess when they came out with the progress rate and they realized that most districts may not meet 42%, they actually put in a waiver to USDE to ask them to lower it to 36%. And so across the state of Texas, we were able to, they moved the measure from 42 to 36. So with that measure at 36, not only did Southwest ISD as a district meet the measure, but so did many other districts here locally. And we'll see the last page, you can see the comparison districts. Yes, and that was the biggest significant change that we've had in the last 2 years. Listening, speaking, and reading are now assessed online, which prior to that, it was assessed holistically. And so that created many challenges, not only for our district, but it created challenges across the state of Texas to kind of meet that measure. And even though the challenges were there with the technology and being online, like I said, we still were able to meet the progress rate at our elementaries. If you really look at the next page, you can see that in our middle schools and secondary, Scobie Middle School, CASTEM did meet that progress rate. And we're working again individually with TELPAS action plans with each administrator to ensure that we're providing the technology, the support, the training to work with all those students at secondary level. And we'll see at the end so that we're going to compare the districts to see where we fall with them also. So if we look at the next one, the next thing we have to report out is how many students were reclassified. So this year we had 61 students who met both criteria. They passed their STAR test and they were able to get advanced high in all 4 domains. So last year with the assessment for the first time being online, it created a challenge. This year we're able to triple our numbers of exited students. And this means that these students now will be monitored for 2 years. And when we looked at those scores earlier, those monitored students are the ones that are really bumping our numbers because they're continuing to be successful. So we continue to monitor for 2 years locally at the state level and then federally up to 5 years. Mm-hmm. So this criteria for them to exit is that they have to receive advanced high. There's 4 levels. There's beginner, intermediate, advanced, and advanced high. So in order for the student to be considered reclassified, they have to have advanced high in listening, speaking, reading, and writing, along with passing their STAR and writing, depending on what grade level. So they actually were a beginner student at some point in time. They went up the proficiency levels and were advanced high. So which means that the student is proficient at grade level and able to communicate in English and pass STAR testing. 61 out of all of our students so when we look at total scores, we can look at if we look at the last page right here, let me see. If you look at Southwest ISD, we had 1,851 students that were assessed from third grade on. So out of those 1,851, it was 61 that have met that criteria. So across the board.
Right, so even 2 years ago, when we went through that change, we only had 18 students. So that came back to our action plan of the devices, the technology had to be in place. So right now the plan is devices have to be purchased, be set in place, and having at least 6 practice opportunities for the students. And so those practices last year, it was through the flip grade. We're trying to become even more intentional with that the students are actually gonna see the outcome of those assessments. So that is something that we definitely want to mirror that assessment at the end of the year that they're going to be taking sometime in February. Where in the past, like he was saying, it was holistic. The teacher would be the one to rate them where they thought they were in the listening or in every single proficiency level. Now it is taken online. So that has been a really big switch for our district and our kiddos, because in the past we were able to report some really good numbers with the exit,
Yes.
but that 2017-18 data really shocked us when there was only 18 students. So we're seeing some progress, and we definitely have an action plan in place where devices are being purchased. So we don't want for those technology pieces to be the reason why we are not able to move forward, and then also creating some additional opportunities for practice time. That it's not the first time that they're listening to this assessment online.
And we've learned a lot in the last year, with TELPAS, because like I said, 2 years ago when it was new, it just like when STAR changed from 1 to STAR all to the new STAR, we weren't ready for it, I guess, at some point. But now I think we're better prepared, and so we're working with our campuses to make sure that our students are better prepared to take the assessment. And so one of the things we have to report on is professional development. So last year we had over 300 participants at different types of professional development: teachers, principals, administrators, paraprofessionals, parents, counselors, and other staff. If you look at the professional development, it included planning, instructional strategies, LPAC framework, teaching for biliteracy, ESL methodology, second language acquisition, assessment, all the way down to alignment of curriculum to instructional programs. One of the things that we have not had to do in the last 2 years is file an ESL waiver. So normally we were the only district in the area that did not file a waiver, which means that all of our teachers were certified in ESL, and of course at elementaries we're bilingual certified providing the instruction. This was a big challenge, and actually continues to be a big challenge for most districts, because the state, the policies changed, just like the test changed, the policies changed. And so in order for us to meet that, last year we provided some stipends, and we provided training. And so this year we've already provided 3 training opportunities. Last year we had 40 teachers at the secondary level get that ESL certification. So now it's working with those teachers, and I think this year we're also going to probably add another 10 to 15 teachers. That's going to put us in a really healthy place at secondary to make sure that our ESL students are being provided instruction through an ESL certified teacher to continue the compliance piece. So in the next 2 weeks, we have to report this out by November 1st. So we're hoping that, again, we're not having to file an ESL waiver again. I think we're in a really healthy place again this year. And so to do a comparison, just to look at where we're at as far as Southwest ISD in comparison. So I went everybody from the north side all the way down to the south side. I looked at the 4 components in domain number 3 and closing the gaps. So the things that we have to look at are the TELPAS progress rate, which is the 36%, our EL grade level performance, and when we're looking at reading and math, we're looking at our graduation rates, and we're looking at our CCMR points. And so this is just ELs in general. This is not all students. This is only the EL data. We look at comparison districts. If you notice that Southwest ISD was the only district in the area that met all 4 components. We met in TELPAS progress rate as a district. We met in reading and math for EL students, in graduation rates for EL students, and CCMR points for EL students. In orange, what I did is I highlighted those comparison districts in our area that have similar amounts of students that they're providing programming for. You look at Judson, you look at Harlingen, Del Rio, Harlandale, Edgewood, and San Antonio. If you look at their totals, they compare to ours, so we can say we can compare our scores to theirs. I also added north side, of course, Alamo Heights, East Central, and some other districts there. Although they're in our area, they really don't compare because we're servicing different amounts of EL students. So you can see here, if we just look at the average here, the TELPAS progress rate as a median for these districts was 33.8. Across the state of Texas, it's about 36.5. So it's not something that only is something particular to Southwest ISD, but all districts are working towards meeting that TELPAS progress rate. Okay. Questions? Thank you so much.
Yes, we're gonna go through a kind of more down version. I know that we have a conversation at the beginning of the year.
Good evening, board members. And so, as Dr. Versham said, part of our message is the data, but we also want to take some time to meet with the staff on their turf. Their, like Dr. Versham said, the campus. It's important for us to kind of move from that convocation setting to the campuses and connect with the teachers a little bit. While we understand that there's some things that we do here at Central Office that help the district be successful, we also recognize that it is the hard work of the teachers in the classroom, the boots on the ground. They're the ones who are with those kids every single day. We know the impact that they have. We know the impact that the leadership on the campus has, and so we know that that's really important. The slide you see in front of you just shows that we're aware that there is a lot of hats that our teachers wear, as well as our administrators who run those campuses, and we know that there's a great challenge that comes with the work that we do. And so we just wanted to acknowledge that work before we jumped into the data. And because of that hard work, it's a reflection of the data that you're going to see here in just a minute as to a lot of the reasons that we do have that success. And so while we've had some success, a part of our message is also we don't want to be satisfied with that success. We want to make sure that we're conscious of where we are, but we still know that there's some improvement that can be done and where we want to be. And so as we take that message around for teachers, it's important to acknowledge their hard work, but also to kind of challenge them to continue to work hard so that we can continue to be successful as a school district.
So we definitely have a commitment to growth. And so as we look at our work for third grade, fourth and fifth grade, we definitely come back and see how we're no longer fighting for that 10th place, but we are definitely trending up. And so we're seeing some room for improvement where we need to look at our pre-K, K1 and 2 in order for us to be able to make a difference in that transition grade level, which is for third grade, which is the first time they take a state assessment. But when we go to fourth and fifth grade, we're looking at, being second, close to, the top. So we move on to looking at how can we just be that top district. So we're looking at our reading here, which is the same thing with the initiatives that we have in place for literacy, the writing that is happening in order for us to make a difference. So we are definitely looking at our percentages where how far are we from the top in order for us to be that top district. We're looking at writing. I know that 7 years ago, we were definitely not in that middle level. So it has been a celebration for the district that we are not in the 40s where we were in the past. So we definitely can also attribute that work to the campus leadership and the teachers for that great work that is happening. Here for science, we move on to looking at the areas that we need to continue to improve. Our focus is, as a district, we're calling it the 90-60-30, which is 90 approaches, 60 needs, and 30 masters. So that is our leverage of what we definitely want to come back and meet. So we're looking at what areas we need to continue to be focusing on. So one of the big celebrations is also in our middle schools that we are definitely not at the bottom. And so we are moving our campuses to the top. And one of the big celebrations is for 8th grade math. We are a district that believes that rigor is for everyone. So our 8th grade students continue to take the Algebra 1 test in 8th grade. 6th grade reading, the same thing. We're noticing some big differences in our transition grade level, which is 6th grade. It's something that this year we did something when it comes to their contact time in 6th grade. They have an additional time for reading. So the middle school principals are working on making that time quality time when it comes to the reading piece. And we are definitely seeing some great growth in 7th grade where we normally saw a drop. We're seeing some increases there. And there we see our science and social studies. It has been that grade level that in 8th grade that we continue to work with. So we're looking at what potential work can we consider. We have consulted, the middle school principals are working together and bringing in some work for social studies and science to continue to improve in those areas. And then we have Algebra 1, Biology and U.S. History. We normally do stand to see these areas in the 80s and 90s when it comes to Biology and U.S. History. For Algebra 1, I want to point out that this also includes the students that are retesters for when they go to the high school. So although we can celebrate the 8th grade scores, then they also go back and take the students that never took Algebra 1 are students that are now taking Algebra 1 for the first time also at the high school level. So English 1, English 2, we are continue to work with the teachers. And so we definitely have some work that we need to continue to just laser in and continue to plan with our teachers and work with them. But it's definitely something that currently we are seeing how our high school principals have some really good POC conversations going on. And so the planning is happening.
So we give a lot of kudos to our campuses for the work that they do. And one of the things that our campuses excel with, and that's their team, and not just our campuses, but our central office as well, is we take the data, we see how the students are doing, we draw up a plan or a new set of goals, and then we execute that plan. And what's been really amazing for Southwest is over the years, it's something that our campuses are really, really good at. One of the reasons that we're so successful is because they're able to do that in kinder, in 5th grade, at the high school level, and regroup and constantly go back and reassess and repeat that process. That really leads to a lot of success on our part. And so when we say, that the campuses are doing amazing things, besides the instruction in the classroom, the things that they do so naturally and so well, a big part of that is that progress monitoring piece that they do with their students and constantly seeing where their kids are, where they need to be, and how we can kind of best regroup our resources to make sure that we are as successful as we need to be. And so when we say that they do amazing things, that's part of those amazing things. And so we remind the campuses it's a marathon, not a sprint. We're not running to the end, and it's not going to be over in October. I mean, it goes all the way until May, until we take that last test. And so it is truly a marathon. It's a long race, and we know kind of what we're up against. we're good at it, but we can always be better at it. So that's what a reminder we like to take to the campuses. And in addition to that, we like to share this video because every teacher, every leader, every someone needs to be reminded why we do this work. It's a selfless job sometimes, and I don't know that everyone gets the credit when they're doing it. So many of our teachers and our principals and our assistant principals and the folks that lead, they do it so naturally. They're there early, they leave late, they do some amazing things in the classroom, and they don't always get to see the end result, which is the success of our students and how our students become successful. And so we found this video that we thought was a good microcosm of how an impact that you can have, even sometimes when you don't even know that you may be having it. So we want to share that with you.
I have a lot of memories of when I was a child. One that's always stuck out to me though was when I was about 10 years old. And I was in school and I struggled. And I didn't struggle with English, math, or science. I struggled with it still. And I would try to listen and focus and process ideas, but I couldn't help myself. And to be honest, I would sit there and then I would just start tapping. And the students in the class would look at me and they'd say, "Hey, stop tapping." A lot of the time, I didn't even realize I was doing it. And then eventually when the teachers got after me and they would yell at me and they'd say, "Clint, you have to stop tapping." It got so bad that I got sent to the principal's office for tapping. And he said to me, "Okay, maybe we go back to class. Just try sitting on your hands." So I did. I went back to class and when I felt myself starting to tap, I did this. I sat on my hands. And that worked for about 5 seconds. One time I was tapping in class and my teacher, Mr. Jensen, he looked at me and he yelled. And he said, "Clint, stay after class." And I thought to myself, this is it. I am done. Now, I've always been the type of person that believes that a single moment of time can change a person's life. And this was one of those moments for me that I will never forget. So I was sitting there with Mr. Jensen and an empty classroom. And he walked past me and he sat next to his desk and he said, "Clint, come here. I want to talk to you." And as he looked me right in the eye, he said, "I need you to know something not in trouble. But I do have just one question that I have to ask you." And he asked, he said, "Have you ever thought about playing the drums?" And in that moment, Mr. Jensen, he leaned back and he opened the top drawer of his desk. And he reached in and he pulled out my very first pair of drumsticks. And he held them in his hands and he looked at me and he said, "Hey, Clint, you don't have a problem. I think you're a drummer." From that moment on, I've never put those sticks down. I toured, recorded, played drums all over the world. My whole college education was paid for with drumsticks in my hand. Just because of a single moment in time, when somebody believed in me, and he saw something in me that I didn't even see within myself. And from that moment, I learned that there's a difference between being the best in the world and being the best for the world.
you, board members.
Yes, sir. I have great pleasure to introduce Natalie Griffith. She is the president and CEO of Habitat for Humanity. They're here tonight to request something from the district, and I'm gonna let her speak first before I make a recommendation.
Great, thank you. So when the board meeting started and I saw all the kids, I was like, God, they're just so fantastic. I'm so glad I don't have to go after them. And then you show that video. So I'm sorry, but not going to be nearly as inspirational. Habitat we have our hashtag. It's called Build for Better. And you all are clearly doing that on a level that I just want to commend you. This is an amazing school district. So thank you for that. Which is one of the reasons that we are very excited about our next development. Habitat is working to develop an affordable housing, single-family neighborhood off of Watson Road, just south from your new high school and Resnick Middle School. One of the reasons that we sought land in this area is because we get so many families who are looking for affordable housing that want to stay in this school district. And it's very clear why. Again, thank you for that. One of the things that the state does is, you all know about agriculture rollback taxes. There is actually a special tax exemption that is available to Habitat to waive that rollback tax. It's automatically waived for most of the taxing districts, but it requires the approval of the school district and the county. And so in a minute, Mr. Robert Rainier from Bexar County is going to join me up here and let you know what the Commissioner's Court's action that they took on it. But I'm here to ask you to also waive that tax. I know how important money is to school districts, and especially you all are doing some amazing things. You're clearly great stewards of that money. So I'm not up here making that request lightly. But one of the things that I can tell you is we're going to take this land that had no tax value and you were not receiving revenue. And in the very first year that we have our houses built, you will recoup more than what you're waiving today. So we have the tax exemption while we are developing the property, but as each house is sold, that becomes 100% taxable, and our families are very proud tax-paying homeowners. It's one of the things, they're first-time homeowners, and it's one of the things that we hear a lot is that makes them feel really invested in their communities. And so who are our families? Our families are the workforce of our area. They are many of school support staff, bank tellers, cashiers, store clerks. They are the actual service industry that supports our community. And we are very excited about, I've been having a lot of conversations with Dr. Versift about we want to strengthen the relationship between Habitat and the school district and do some specific target marketing. We know that you guys have fabulous schools, but you have a lot of staff and your staff is struggling with affordable housing. And so we think we can help them meet that need. And, wouldn't it be great if your staff was able to get into an affordable, it's a permanent housing solution. It allows them and their family to improve their situation, but their house payment doesn't increase. We are a true nonprofit. We sell houses at what it costs us to build. There's no markup, there's no profit. And then to make it even more affordable, we finance it for 20 to 25 years with a 0% interest mortgage. So their house payment, including an escrow for property taxes and homeowners insurance, will be around $600 to $620 a month. So that is truly affordable. And so that's what I'm here to ask your help, is to waive these taxes. I mentioned, so Robert, if you'd like to join me up here, I mentioned that the county is also a partner, not only in the in waiving their portion of the taxes, but they're investing over $500,000 in this project, and the city of San Antonio is investing $3 million. And that's really impressive, but the really impressive number is the community itself. Habitat does what it does by bringing people together. The houses are built with donated funds and a majority of volunteer labor. Last year, we had 15,500 people volunteer on our site. And then the funding comes from people just like you and you all. And we will have about $9 million of private funds to match the public's contribution. So I'm asking you to support that and help get us started off with this initial property tax waiver. Absolutely. That is up to them. And so one of the things that we are doing is with Dr. Versip's office, we will be holding information sessions for a lot of your department staff. Additionally, in fact, you're already going to see it. We've already put our flyers out for that. And Habitat will give priority consideration to, we'll mark the, our application forms are very simple. A one-page front and back gets them started, and we will mark those for the school district. And we have committed to giving those applications priority consideration. We are not a public. We're not your typical public service process similar to somebody applying for benefits or help through someone else. We are very customer service oriented. Our families are our clients. We are accountable to the community. So we process those really quickly and have a better response rate than if you go to a bank for a mortgage. You'll hear from us sooner than you'll hear from them. Families that do not qualify can enter our mortgage counseling program, and we will help them. We'll identify what their barriers are to qualifying for homeownership, and then we will on one-on-one counsel and help those families overcome their benefits. And some families stay in that program for as much as 2 years. Homeownership is not for everybody. Everybody's not ready for it, but we want to give them the tools and the best opportunity to become ready for it. And that's our commitment to you.
Question.
Yes, sir.
To the best of your knowledge, what is going to be the average taxable value of each home?
So the initial taxable, because we sell it at cost, so the initial taxable value will be about $88,000.
What do you think, if you're selling it at cost, some of the materials are donated, what do you think that would equate to in an open market?
In an open market, our houses, actually, we did one of the things we have to do for our grants is an appraisal, a pre-construction appraisal. And the open market is in the Watson Road property is estimated to be about $150,000.
How much rollback would the district lose?
$31,000. There is. So that is in our, we're starting with the affordable model for families earning less than 80%. But Habitat is also helped start a companion nonprofit called Cross Timber Homes. And that builds for families between 80 to 120% of area median income. So right now we're working to work with the city and the county to identify what funding might there. The public helps us with the public infrastructure. So the county and the city help us put in the streets, the drainage, the utilities. The houses are all privately funded. And so that would be the model for that as well. And we're working to identify the infrastructure funding. But the way that the infrastructure is pass-through funds from HUD, U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, and that requires the affordable units to go in first.
So when does, so it's taxed on how much it costs to build it,
Yes, sir.
but at some point it's got to go up to its normal cost.
It does. It usually, that happens in about 10 years.
Dr. Versif, members of the board. My name is Robert Reyna. I represent Bexar County, and I'm here to speak in support of Habitat for Humanity's request for an agricultural rollback exemption pursuant to Section 23.55P of the Texas Tax Code. On September 3rd, 2019, Bexar County Commissioners Court approved an agricultural rollback exemption for the organization, and I respectfully encourage the Southwest ISD board to follow suit. For the past few years, I've had the great pleasure of working with Natalie and her team at Habitat for Humanity, most recently on the construction of 167 affordable single-family housing units. That particular project was lauded by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development as a national model of synergistic public-private partnerships, and I'm sure the Watson Road development project will be no exception. So that being said, I respectfully ask for your support of this measure. Thank you.
So the infrastructure has already started, and we actually just started that. You'll see a lot of dirt moving if you go down Watson Road. The infrastructure takes about 9 months to put in. We will actually be house building starting in August of next year. We'll have foundations going in. And our biggest, we have 2 big builds of the year. We build all year long, but we build in the spring and in the fall because of the weather. Go figure, construction. People would rather be in the spring and the fall than out in the summer. But so our fall build, which is our largest build of the year and one of our most high profile, will be on this property. So thank you for what you've done. Oh, less than a quarter mile. It's right around the corner. That's correct. Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, the next one is, at the last meeting we were going to talk about our plan for buses going forward. This is the first purchase of the bond funds. We're going to purchase 8 buses. We got word today that we got approved finally for the other. We had the approval, all the documentation was filed with the state. So our grant should be coming in and we can do that. We'll probably at the next board meeting bring that other purchase back. So this is to purchase 8 buses from the bond funds, which we previously discussed.
Aye.
Diesel. Yes, this is a kind of a new program we're trying to implement with our bus drivers. Currently, we're dealing with really on Mondays and Fridays being short bus drivers, and so we wanted to ask the board and recommend to the board. We want to do kind of an attendance incentive for this group. What this means is we're going to do it on a month-to-month basis so that if they have perfect attendance in the month of November, that first check in December, we would pay them $100 for having perfect attendance. Instead of doing one big attendance incentive at the end, because and this is going to be all or nothing, I'm talking with the lawyers to get away from having any kind of exceptions and dealing with those situations. It's 100% attendance no matter what happens. And it'll be on a month-to-month basis. So if you miss in November, you won't get paid for that month, but you get another chance in December.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is something we're trying to do just to help out with our situation happening at bus driver attendance.
Aye.
Chillers, let's go ahead and bring up Mr. Barajas.
Hello again. So Sky Harbor currently has two chillers that were originally installed in 2004. They have exceeded their life expectancy, and over the years, we have to replace several compressors that go out. We have reached out to Airstream, which is our current vendor or holder for our maintenance, yearly maintenance equipment for the district. The cost of this replacement is $266,690, and these are to be funded from 2012 bond funds. Our recommendation is that the board approve Airstream to replace the two air-cooled chillers at Sky Harbor for the amount of $266,690.
Aye.
Yeah, these are funds that are left over in the 2012 bond funds. It's like interest and pennies from each project. It says pennies is 270,000. We need to get rid of those funds.
It's a lot of pennies.
So
We started the school year with each campus principal presenting their plan, which is, we call it Tell Your Accountability Story, but we do have 5 campuses that had to submit a target improvement plan. And so these are 5 campuses that Lisa has been working with along with a team. So we're gonna have them present their story to us.
So good evening. So today we're going to be talking about targeted improvement plans. Last year when I brought targeted improvement plans to you for approval, TEA was in the midst of a changeover in how plans were supposed to be designed and implemented. And so they have now put a new process in place. So I'm going to talk about that new process first. So we now are using what's called the Effective Schools Framework, or ESF for short. And what TEA has done is they've looked at what those traits are that really effective schools and districts have in place. And they've prioritized different items. And they have 5 prioritized levers. And under each lever, there are essential actions. And they've picked 6 essential actions that each of the schools that have to write a targeted improvement plan choose from to write their plan around what areas they're going to focus on. So the first area that they have is strong school leadership and planning, and the essential action is looking at developing instructional leaders who have clear roles and responsibilities, and then they have sub-bullets on what that looks like on a campus. So things like having clear roles and expectations and processes in place at the campus. The next one is effective, well-supported teachers. So the essential action is how we recruit, select, assign, induct, and retain those highly effective teachers and what campuses are doing to make those things happen. The next one is focused on having a positive school culture, making sure that the campus has a compelling and aligned vision, mission, goals, and values, and they're focused on a safe environment and high expectations and what that looks like on the campus level. Then they have a high quality curriculum is the next lever that we're looking at, and that's making sure that the curriculum and the assessments are aligned to TEKS, and there's a year-long scope and sequence in place. And what that looks like on the campus is they align all of their assessments and their instructional materials, and they have high fidelity professional development happening. And the 5th one actually has 2 essential actions. First is having objective-driven daily lesson plans with formative assessments. Making sure that everyone is planning and creating effective lessons, that they're very clear and focused, and that those lesson plans are being reviewed regularly. and be given feedback. And the other essential action under that is data-driven instruction, making sure that we're reviewing data at all points throughout the school year and disaggregating it all the way down to the student level and using that to make corrective action plans and reteach those students. So that's what the state has said effective schools do. So this is, the identification happens first. There's two different types of labels that are given by the state. The first labels are based on only domain 3. So they're part of our ESSA compliance with the waiver with the Department of Education. So any school that has a comprehensive support label does have to come to the board for approval of their TIP plan. And that's part of ESSA compliance. So that's Legacy, McNair, and McAuliffe are all comprehensive support campuses. Then looking at the state side, any campus who has an overall F, an overall D, or even a D in one single domain has to have a targeted improvement plan that's brought to the board for approval. So that comprehensive support label, we have 3 of those. Again, that's based solely on domain 3 in the ESSA compliance. And what gets you that label is they're looking at your score, and they take all of the schools in that type of environment. So they look at all high schools, they look at middle schools, they look at elementary, and they rank them across the state. And the bottom 5% are given the label of comprehensive support. So that target can move from year to year as different campuses are all striving to improve. Once you have that label of comprehensive support, you keep that label no matter how well you do for 2 years. Okay? So you have to move yourself out of that bottom 5%, increase your letter grade, and stay there for out of that 5% for 2 years before you lose the label. Okay? The letter grades are given by the state, and each domain has raw scores that are scaled to determine letter grades. And then they're calculated at domain 1, domain 2, or A and B. That's 70% of your overall. And then you're closing the gaps, that's 30% of your overall final score. So what's the process that we go through? The campuses that have been identified, they go and do a data analysis. They do a deep dive into their data. They go down to the teacher level. They review the prioritized levers and the essential actions, and they look at their artifacts. What artifacts do they have to support how well they're doing in each of those different essential actions? Then they self-rate. They give themselves a rating, 1 to 5. 1, we're not doing it. 5, we're knocking it out of the park. And they give themselves a rating on each of those essential actions, and they use that rating to determine which 2 or 3 essential actions they're going to focus on in their targeted improvement plan. Our comprehensive schools now have what's called an ESF facilitator. We had a PSP last year, which is a professional service provider, who came and worked with us all year. That's changed as part of this process change. We now have an ESF facilitator. This is like an outside evaluator. So they are looking at all of their artifacts that had to be submitted to them. They're making campus visits. We've already had 2 of the campuses have had their visit already. And they sit in PLCs, they do campus walks, and then they write a recommendation on what they think the targeted improvement plan should have been focused on. Okay. So comprehensive support and overall F campuses also have to send their plans to TEA for review. And then we have conference calls with TEA after the initial submission. And then any campus that has a TIP will review their TIP every quarter and update it. And the ones that had to submit to TEA will resubmit. We'll have another conference call after each quarter for feedback from TEA. So let's get into the tips. We're going to start with our first campus, which is McNair Middle School. Their label is Comprehensive Support Progress. That means they have raised their score. They are not in the bottom 5%. But again, you keep that label for 2 years. Okay? So we're very proud of the progress they made because we didn't have letter grades last year, but if we would have had a letter grade, they would have been an F. And they raised their score not to a D, but all the way up to a C and almost to a B, which is a huge, huge gain. So we're very proud of the work that they have done. They have chosen as their 2 focus areas, Objective 5.1 objective-driven daily lesson plans with informative assessments, and 5.3 data-driven instruction. So I'm going to ask Ms. Chris to come up here and talk to you about her plan.
So last year we did student achievement. You'll see in 2018 when our scores, we were at a 69 and we moved up 5 points to a 74. School progress in 2018 was a 75 and we moved up to an 83. Before I get into the things that we did to get us there, I really think it's important to share the data. We're 1 point away from getting a B, but most importantly, we're only 11 away from getting that A that we're so going to get this year. Closing the gaps is the area that they said we needed, was our improvement needed. We went from a 47 to a 71. We increased by 24 points. Overall, giving us an increase from 2018, a 67 to a 79, increased by 12 points again, missing that B by 1 point, but we're almost there at 11 to get that A. How did we do it? So the one thing that we talked about is taking it back to the basics, is holding everyone accountable for their data. We know our data pretty good. Teachers know their data, admin know their data, but what about our students? Do our students know their data? Do they understand why their data is so important? And so in order to do that, we had teachers meet with students. You'll see on the right-hand side, they do meet with students individually and set a target for their assessment. They look at last year's score, they look at the indicator from Lead Forward and TEA to determine a progress score for that student to make. They set a score and you'll see a target at the one at the top was a 73. But we had those conversations and they had those conversations with those students. Is a 73 good enough for you? Did you know that if you only got a couple more points, you would get a 77 to be at that meets level? Or if you got a couple more, you would be at an 86 to get that mastery level. We added at the bottom, you'll see on the top one that TELPAS. This student needs to work on their TELPAS score. So that's also an indicator for the teacher to making sure that, we're reminded of that so that we improve our TELPAS score as well. In the middle, you'll see every student on McNair does wear their ID. They wear it around them. Behind their ID, if you go up to any student, you can ask them, what's your target? They're going to show you what their target is. And they know their target. And the reason is we don't want just teachers talking to them about their target. We want everybody in the campus talking to them about their target to let them know we're all holding them accountable and we're all here to support you. And then on the left hand side, once they do have a common assessment, students do chart the progress with teachers and they can see whether or not they're growing. One of the main things that we said in order to get there is we need to really look at our daily lesson plan. And so in order to do that, we had our MCLs model and coach and plan a new lesson plan template for our teachers to identify what is the level of rigor that we're teaching, and are we teaching at the level of the way that it's being tested. To ensure that that's really happening in our lesson plan, those lesson plans are sent out to our multi-classroom leaders. They review the lesson plans a week in advance. They provide guidance and feedback to teachers. And then we created a content cluster meeting. So the one thing that we heard from teachers is we know we have to put all these things in the lesson plans. We know we need to share best practice, but we need the time. We need the time to do that. And so what we did is during our intervention and enrichment opportunity at the end of the day, about 2:30, we do give each department time from 2:30 to 3:30 to use that time to look at lesson plans, to share best practices, look at the data, and use the data to drive instruction. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right, so our next campus that we're going to invite up to speak about their targeted improvement plan is Legacy High School. They are comprehensive support re-identified, so this is second year in a row that they've been at that bottom quartile. But we do want you to be aware that Legacy High School as a high school is being ranked against and other high schools in the state that do have what's called a CCMR score. That's College and Career Military Readiness. They won't have those pieces of data until 2020 because that's based on your annual graduates from the prior year and how well they did on things like TSI and AP and dual credit and the industry certifications. So since their first graduating class was 2019, they do not have that data, but they're being compared to other high schools that do. And we know that that's going to make an impact on their overall score for closing the gaps. So I'm going to So the prioritized focused areas that Legacy has chosen, they chose 3. You can choose either 2 or 3, no more than 3. And so they've chosen 3.1, compelling unaligned vision, mission, goals, and values, focused on a safe environment and high expectations. 5.1, their objective-driven daily lesson plans with formative assessments, and 5.3, data-driven instruction. So I'm going to invite Mr. Kidry up to talk about his plan.
All right, good evening, board. So, we are in a little different situation, as Lisa mentioned, because of CCMR data. But this past year, so we are comprehensive re-identified, meaning that we're still at that bottom 5% with that domain 3. But we did show some gains. So when you look at this first slide up here, we're at a C. Overall, we're at a C campus. So on the far right, you see we made a slight improvement there. On this next slide right here, it tells you right here where we were in each domain. So in 2018, if the grading system would have been there, or would it count, we would have been a D campus that first year. So in 2019, which was this past year, without CCMR data, with student achievement, academic growth, and relative performance, we had a gain. So as you can see, in overall score, we went up 9 points. Student achievement, we went up 2. And keep in mind, again, if we would have had that CCMR data set, it would have increased domain, that student achievement score. Academic growth, we're really proud of that. We went up 17 points. Relative performance, they take the highest of the 2. We went up 2. So with closing the gap, which is domain 3, we're at a 39. We went to a 56. So the target is 6. So we barely missed that domain 3. So it still places at the bottom 5%, but we're pretty proud of that. So again, we are, because of that ESSA, that domain 3, we are still a comprehensive support campus re-identified because of domain 3. But we do feel, as Lisa mentioned, that once that CCMR data counts, because we had our first graduating class last year, we should be out of, well, it's still, what'll be 4 years?
Yeah, you can get it next year.
Well, we'll get it next year, but it'll be another year after that, because it's 2 years, right?
But you have to,
Yeah.
you'll still have to label this.
Right. So again, the biggest thing, again, we had some gains, but our biggest gain was in closing the gaps, but we still weren't where we needed to be. Okay. So some of the things that we focused on, again, I'm just going to go back to Legacy. So brand new high school, going into year 2, first graduating class. When we sat down as a team, we felt that the most important thing was that we're not going to move numbers if we're not able to have that common vision, mission, aligned to what we want to do. So what I mean by that is that, again, brand new campus. I came on board, or we came on board year 2. So there wasn't really a common vision with what we wanted to do. So that's why we chose that first one. Now, going into year 2, we're building that. And as you can see with the young lady that we had earlier that was recognized, our kids have been a big part of this as well, too. I mean, they played a huge part in this. I mean, we got kids that want to stay. I mean, when I got to Legacy, we had kids that wanted to transfer out of Legacy. Now they want to stay at Legacy. So I think the biggest part is where our focus area has got to be, and it still will be, kind of building the traditions, building systems at Legacy. The second thing is with the priority focus areas, with the objective-driven daily lesson plans, just like McNair's. I think we're all doing that. We want to make sure at the high school as well, too, that we're utilizing that 90-minute block the way it should be utilized. So we just got to make sure that with our lesson plans are correct, we're holding teachers accountable. Same thing, the kids know what they have to do as well, too. But making sure, bottom line is the instruction is going the full 90 minutes. So I think we've had that luxury of having a 90-minute block. There's not any more excuses that, well, we don't have enough time to teach in a traditional schedule. So that time is there, and they have that time. I think that's it, right? So we'll tell it. All right. Okay. You're good.
All right, our next campus is McCullough. This is the first year that McCullough has had the label of comprehensive support, but it is the second year that they have had the label of F. So they have a ESSA label, and they also have a state label. They've chosen as their 2 priority focus areas objective-driven lesson plans, informative assessments, and data-driven instruction. So I'm going to have Ms. Freeman come and speak about her plan.
Good evening, board. I want to begin by reflecting on last year's scores. What I did was I highlighted the area that is most in need, which is our Domain 3. Domain 3 refers to closing the gap, which is our student sub-POPs, our ESL, our SPED, and our EcoDisc. At McCullough, 95% of our students are identified as EcoDisc, so basically Domain impacts all of our students. With knowing this information over the summer, we began to, okay, well, what are we going to do to address this need? We looked at our special ed and our ESL students, and we hand scheduled them on the master schedule. So it was a little bit over 200 students, but working alongside my academic coordinator and my counselors, we were able to hand schedule these students into classes that we felt they were going to be the most effective. And it also allowed for us to have our push and master schedule very detailed to where the inclusion teachers are not being spread too thin. So that was one. In addition to that, we have now a weekly PLC for all of our inclusion and ESL push-in teachers, which targets and focuses on the data to drive that Domain 3 number. We've also created data-driven advisory classes, so students who are in need of additional interventions, not only are getting the Math 180, the Read 180 assistance, they're also with an advisory teacher who could be that extra level of support. In looking at our data from last year, science and social studies took the biggest hit. At last month's board meeting, we identified as 8th grade science being in need of some support. Before that was identified, over the summer, I worked with Region 20 and identified a consultant who could work with our campus. We planned on 13 days, 4 days of which are planning and 9 days of modeling. Social studies, with the support of Anitra Chris, we were able to identify a resource that was data-driven, which was Lohman Consulting, which we realized was something that was missing in the secondary levels. ELAR support, the 90-minute block is great, but we also knew it was new. So I reached out with the assistant of my ESF, who's been great with me, we reached out to Region 20 and we were able to get a consultant to come and work just with the 6th grade ELAR teachers to show them how to fully utilize the 90-minute block. And we'll continue, of course, to use the support of Mr. O and Ms. Vandercook because, they do support us and they're on our campus quite often. Moving on, the focus areas, as Ms. Bolte said, is our 5.1 and 5.3, which is our instruction. It's our instructional practices. I knew that going into year 2, we needed to do something and it needed to be great. My first phone call was to Ms. Chris and I said, what did you do to move that number for your Domain 3? And she said the target cards, and she shared that with me, and we executed on our campus as well. That is one. I also reached out to the principal of Terrell Wells, and I scheduled a site visit. I invited the team, and we went out there, and we went to Terrell Wells, and we were able to see some really good things that are happening over there. And we came back on campus and implemented some of those things that we saw that were working for them. Under the guidance of Ms. Aragon, we've been doing principal and CNI instructional rounds throughout the district. I've incorporated that within our own campus, so I have my teachers doing instructional rounds with each other. Mandatory Power Saturdays and after-school lock-ins, that started immediately on week 2. I want to thank Mr. Tamayo. I called him over the summer and I said, sir, I need your support in this. I need a bus. What was happening the year before was the bus couldn't come and pick us up, our students up until 5:36, which is 3 hours after school, which I saw was a barrier. So when I contacted Mr. Tamayo, he said, I'll make it work. I'll reserve a bus for you. So now, since the second week of school, I have our very own coaches driving the bus every Monday and Wednesday at 4:45. So, and we have a bus full every day. So Mr. Tamayo may go to 2 buses, just FYI. And we also get some curriculum support in each of our core content areas. Region 20s for science and ELAR. And then for now we have all 4 core content support through the district specialists. And they are on our campus. They provide a lot of great support, and they've always been very helpful. Thank you.
So we also have state targeted improvement plans. So our next one is Spicewood Park Elementary. They do have an overall letter grade of a D, and TEA has determined that if a campus has an overall letter grade of a D for 2 years in a row, then they will be an F campus. It will be a forced failure. So this is the first year for letter grades. So this is the first year that Spicewood has had that overall D. They have picked their 3 focus areas, and they picked 4.1 curriculum and assessments aligned to the TEKS with a year-long scope and sequence, 5.1 the daily lesson plans, and 5.3 is data-driven instruction. You're kind of seeing a theme now, right? So I'm going to ask Mr. De Leon to come up and talk to you about his plan.
Good evening. I want to begin with just the state of the campus, where we ended last year. And up there we see Southwest ISD as a district, and then we have Spicewood Park. And only in academic growth were we comparable to the district. Everything else we're far below. So I want to look at domain 1, concentrate on domain 1, and really we scored at the bottom 3 in all categories. So we really are tier 3 campus. So we were dead last in 5 out of 8 of the STAR tests, right? So 10th and 3rd grade reading, we were 10th place, and 3rd grade math, 11th. 4th grade reading, we were 11th. 4th grade math, 9th. Writing, we were 9th out of 11. And 5th grade, we were last in all 3 areas. So I know that we got to do this on a dime, turn it on a dime. So with that, I mean, I know we all have a sense of urgency. Our teachers understand where we're at, and I had something to show you. So now here, even though it is only a common assessment, but we've done some growth. So we're like in 3rd grade reading, we're 6th place instead of 10th. In math, in 3rd grade math, we're in 4th. 4th grade reading, 4th place. 4th grade math, 6th place. So we've done some good things there so far, even though it is only the first common assessment. 4th place rather, 4 out of 11 in reading, and 5th grade reading, 8 out of 11 in 5th grade math. So, our tip focus areas, the first one was curriculum and assessment aligns to the TEKS. So what are we doing there? We're making sure that obviously the curriculum is aligned from K to 5, but also we need to make sure that we use all the supplemental materials that we do use are also aligned, and we don't no fluff. It's all just aligned to the curriculum, to the TEKS rather. So we teach and assess weekly. That's one of the things that we have our campus doing. So everything is teach and assess in small chunks. We also have 3-week assessments, the common assessments, obviously the district common assessments and the beams. So teachers are encouraged to check for understanding throughout their lessons. One of the things that was happening in conversations with them is that they would assess and just go on. I mean, they would teach rather and just teach, assess, and go on. They never reflected on their data. That's one of the things that was happening according to the teachers when we met this summer. So that's why this was our focus. So we're also having Ms. Mata and Dr. Ortiz. They're meeting with our 3rd through 5th grade math teachers, reading and math teachers every 3 weeks. So we have them, they come in, they plan with their teachers, they look at best practices, what are we doing in the next 3 weeks, the materials that are needed, again, just covering best practices. And we're utilizing outside consultants. So 5.1, objective-driven daily lesson plans, and there we also have Dr. Ortiz and Ms. Mata, when they meet with their teachers every 3 weeks, they also look at lesson planning. Then we have Dr. Ortiz comes every week for our math lesson plans for 3 to 5. Actually, she goes from K to 5 on those days. We also have 2 academic coaches this year. We have one for lower house, pre-K through 2nd grade, and then we have one from 3rd through 5th. with them and ourselves, we attend every weekly planning meeting. We make the teachers. We have the teachers. We have the teachers submit their lesson plans, but also they give us a hard copy, and then they place one right inside their door. So when we're walking, we have visitors on campus. They can walk in and know exactly where they're supposed to be. We also do a lot of model teaching of our academic coach or a high-performing teacher, peer observations. And we took another step, and we also had the academic coach make sure that the academic coaches were accompanying these teachers that are going and doing these observations, because we want to make sure that is very purposeful. So they go in with an agenda, and they go in and look for certain particular things that the coach is going to be helping the teacher grow with, or grow on. So they have a specific item that they're going to go in and look for when the other teacher is teaching. And lastly, we have 5.3 is data-driven instruction. And really, we have weekly simultaneous PLC. So what we did there, since we have a second academic coach, we have one coach meets with pre-K through second, and the other coach with third through fifth grades. That helps us break up and target them a little bit closer. And again, an administrator and the academic coach are both in the PLCs, and it's ran by both. We utilize Sort 3D, and that's how we track our scores. Let me see what else. So we utilize these data-driven instruction. So they research the TEKS with help from the academic coaches. They teach the lesson, they assess, they review the data, and then they reteach. And then that determines whether they're going to do it whole group or small group, and then they reassess, and we go from there. In kinder to fifth grade, we do offer after school tutoring for all grade levels, and we're also having a Saturday intervention. That we're trying to work on that a little bit better. We have that about 2 or 3 Saturdays a month rather. So and then our ELLs and special ed students, we're also making sure that we're targeting these children to better our scores and better them. So,
All right, and our final targeted improvement plan at the evening that we're going to talk about is Hidden Cove Elementary. Hidden Cove has a D in just one domain, so their overall score is actually a C. They have satisfactory performance for TEA, but TEA doesn't want us to lose sight of any area, and they don't want it to go down, so they have asked any campus that has a D in even one domain to have a targeted improvement plan and bring it before the board. So Hidden Cove's focused areas are 2.1, recruit, select, assign, induct, and retain a full staff of highly qualified educators. And then 5.1, daily lesson plans with formative assessments. And 5.3, data-driven instruction. So I'm going to ask Ms. Meyer to come up and talk to you about her plan.
Good evening. Okay, so for domain 1, we had a 62. And that was the only area in which we had a D. Our new goal is to have 180 percentage points between approaches, meets, and masters, and that would give us a component score of 60. And when you do all of math behind that, that would actually take us up a whole lot. I found that this past year, what we did was push growth, like get the kids to just grow. We need to grow them. And in doing that, we did really great for domain 2, but in domain 1, we lost a lot of value with, not lost value, but we didn't make gains is with kids going from does not meet to approaches. So that's our focus this year, is to really focus on domain 1 and get all of the does not meet, do not meet kids up to approaches. Approaches moving up to meets, and meets moving up to masters. So we're using Sort 3D in order to do that. We've identified all of the students. We have identified the number of students we need for approaches, meets, and masters, and those kids are actually highlighted, bolded, and we're tracking all of our sub-pops as well. For domain 2, I'm going to go through domain 2 and 3 really quick, only because all of it affects domain 1. So domain 1 is like everything together. But domain 2 for part A, we have a goal of 274 points, which would give us a component score of 80. And for part B, it's dependent on our CEP forms. We have collected 100% of them, and there were 3 kids that we need to go back and look at. The rest of them we've already checked and they're complete, and we are also focusing on the 90-60-30 goal for the district. I'm really proud of Domain 2, Part A, really, for our growth, because Hidden Cove is 98.5% economically disadvantaged. And with that high rate, what the state does is they'll either take Part A or Part B, whichever one's higher. And with 98.5 being EcoDis, that's a huge amount, but they actually took our Part A over that because the growth was so high. So they took Part A for us instead of Part B. So that's something that I'm really proud of, because we did push that growth so much. For them to take that instead of the 98.5 was huge. So for Domain 3, academic achievements, these are just the numbers that I already did the math and found out how many kids we need in each area in order to meet each. It's not A, B, C, and D for Domain 3, but I like to make it up, and I tell you, so I just made it up in my mind that way because it's easier to remember. For academic achievement, there's 105 out of 250 students in ELAR need to be at meets or above in order for us to hit our target, and 110 out of those 250 need to hit it meets or above in math in order for us to hit our target that the state has for us. For closing the gaps, we actually met all 14 targets, and so we want to continue to meet all 14 of those targets by continuing to push the growth. We also met the ELP status, and we're going to make sure to continue making sure that the kids are using their microphones. We got them all the headset with the microphones, so they're going to continue to use that, and also increase the collaborative learning environments that they have, so that they're able to speak to one another. And then for Domain 3, student success status, that's really where the numbers come into play. So I know we still have the 90-60-30 goal, but when doing the math and figuring out exactly how many assessments we need at approaches, meets, and masters, those are the amount of assessments. And I say assessments instead of students because like a 5th grade student is going to count for reading, they're going to count for math, and they're going to count for science. So that's why the numbers are so high there. But in order to hit that student success status, which is something that's really important in order to affect Domain 1, is we need to get 491 of those assessments taken to approaches, 262 to meets, and 164 to masters. So here are 3 focus areas. For the first one, it's highly qualified educators, and so they're engaging in professional development based on their needs. We have each teacher doing a minimum of 2 walkthroughs on their peers with specific look-fors. So what we did was completed forms for every teacher, and we assigned the teacher's weaknesses with the teacher's strength. So for example, if I have a 3rd grade teacher who really struggles with making real world connections during instruction, then I paired her with a 5th grade teacher who's amazing at doing that. And we paired them around like that so that they're going to see exactly what we know that they need. And each teacher is going to complete that form with what they learned and what they're going to plan to implement in their classroom. The next one is objective-driven daily lesson plans with formative assessments. So we are doing weekly planning with Vicki and Becky as well. So they're coming in every week to meet with teachers and plan. The lesson plans are created based on the students' needs and turned in on a weekly basis. So the formative assessments are also due every week, and they turn them into the academic coaches, and then together we go through the assessments that they're going to give them on whenever during the week, and we check for TEKS alignment. And then last is data-driven instruction, and that one is we're having weekly PLCs with the academic coaches and administration present. We're putting all of our data into SOAR, and so we're looking at that every week for math and science, and biweekly for reading and writing. They also fill out a data analysis sheet and planning when they're going through their PLC, so it's very structured for them and telling them exactly what to focus on and what to look at. And then during PLCs, they also get up and model for each other. So either the academic coach will model it if the teachers are not sure of how to teach it, or we get the lead teacher who is really great at teaching that lesson to get up and model for the teachers so they know how to teach for the next lesson. And that's it.
So the complete plans are in your board book, and we do ask that the board approve the targeted improvement plans for McCullough, McNair, Legacy, Spicewood, and Hidden Cove.